Matt Levi Investigates, brought to you in part by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, empowering Hawaiians, strengthening Hawaii. Meadow Gold, the dairy that truly cares about Hawaii. D.R. Horton, America's builder. Chaminade University of Honolulu, a native Hawaiian serving institution. BEI Hawaii, Hawaii's largest distributor of industrial chemicals, fertilizers, and agricultural products. And HMSA, to keep our community informed and engaged, working together for positive change.
You know, I kept telling myself that one day I'm going home. I don't know what day that is. I know it's not today, but maybe tomorrow, maybe next week, maybe next month, but one day I'm going home.
After nearly 21 years behind bars, that day finally did come for Alvin Jardine. But it took years of determination and hard work by attorneys, law professors, and students at the University of Hawaii's Richardson School of Law for the Maui man to regain his freedom. Tonight we examine a terrible crime, half a life behind bars, and the Hawaii Innocence Project. This is a Maui story with more twists and turns than the road to Kahakuloa. It begins one night in late December 1990 in the upcountry community of Haiku. A man breaks into a home and terrorizes a 25-year-old woman at knife point while her young children sleep in a back room. He strips off his clothes and forces her to do the same. He sits on a papasan chair that is covered with a tablecloth and pulls the victim down onto his lap, facing away from him. He rapes her repeatedly. It is only when one of her children wakes up and distracts the assailant that she is able to escape. Her attacker runs from the house. The case was assigned to Maui detective Antonio Funes. While canvassing the neighborhood, Funes came across a group of young boys playing with illegal fireworks in the street near the location of the crime. He showed them a composite sketch and asked them to list all the 18 to 25-year-old men in the neighborhood. One name on that list was Alvin Jardine, a 21-year-old man who lived just down the street. At the time, Alvin Jardine was already known to Maui police and the courts. Jardine was a recently released felon convicted of bank robbery. After the robbery, Jardine fled to the Big Island, but then turned himself in. The detective who brought Jardine in for the robbery was Antonio Funes. So Detective Funes knew you from your earlier case?
Yes, he was familiar with me, and I live right next to his brother, Joseph.
Funes used the illegal fireworks as leverage to get the kids to help him. They said Funes threatened them with arrest and talked about a possible reward of $1,000 if they could identify someone fitting the description of the assailant. Kyle Kalibuso was one of the young boys questioned by Funes and shown a composite sketch. Did the picture that he showed you look like Alvin?
It looked like a lot of people. When it was on, I don't think it looked like Alvin.
If the detective had not told you you might be arrested for the firecrackers or had not offered you a reward, would you have given him any names?
Nah, I think we would have kept going, doing what we was doing.
It was the money.
It was the money. I would say at that time, $1,000 for a little kid.
And
imagine how much choice you can have.
And being scared.
And being scared, yeah.
The victim had picked Jardine out of a photo lineup and identified him from a high school yearbook photo. Jardine was then arrested.
I just thought that everything, you know, I'll just talk to the people who was there with me. Had 11 people seeing me at home that night. And so, you know, I wasn't like in full on like, okay, you know, this is it or something, you know. I was just sort of, just let the system work itself out and then, you know, I'm gonna be out of here.
Maui prosecutors were confident Jardine was the attacker. He was brought to trial on charges of burglary, kidnapping, and sexual assault. Jardine went to trial twice. Both trials ended in hung juries. In April 1992, he was brought to trial a third time. Again, the jury was deadlocked, but the judge instructed jurors to go back and try once more to reach a verdict. The jury came back shortly after that with a guilty verdict, and Alvin Jardine was sentenced to 35 years in prison. Jardine's insistence that he was innocent never wavered. Several times during his long incarceration, he was offered a chance to admit guilt, join a sex offender program, and possibly be released on parole. But despite these chances at freedom, Jardine refused to say he was guilty.
The only choice that I had was, it was either my integrity or my freedom. That's the only two choices I had. I can just go admit to a crime and just get out of jail and be on sex offender for the rest of my life, and then life goes on. Or I can just do 35 years, max that charge out, come out 60, 62 years old, and figure it out then.
A healthcare reform download from HMSA.
Under the new healthcare reform law, adults can be immunized and many women can receive preventive health services all at no charge. You just have to pay the sales tax.
To learn more about healthcare reform, go to hmsa.com/reform for options and answers to your questions.
HMSA. We've got you covered.
In Hawaii, there's one name that's synonymous with keeping our islands green and growing: Gaviota. It's been that way since 1890. Gaviota brand fertilizer is made especially for Hawaii's plants and soils and blended for reliable, versatile, complete performance. And now we're proud to announce new Gaviota Green, a natural compost-based fertilizer that's safe for plants, people, and the environment. Keep your green growing strong with Gaviota brand fertilizer from BI Hawaii.
It's a way of looking at the everyday and the ordinary with a new perspective. Science is everywhere. Our students learn how to see the world, know the world, and change the world. Think science. Think Chaminade.
What do you seek? What moves you? Being around for them? Impressing her? Competition? Some seek a wink and a smile, or long to fit into that perfect style. To those who climb mountains, or go with the flow, or fly to the moon and the stars, to be comfortable with who you are. What is your story? What moves you?
Number one, you don't want to have anyone who has not committed an offense to be sitting in jail. I mean, what you do in that situation is you basically say that our system has failed. And we put a lot of money, we put a lot of effort in our system. We have the fairest system, we believe, in the world in terms of a court system. But having people who are convicted, who did not commit the offense, really tarnishes what we believe and what the citizens believe a system should work like.
The National Innocence Project was started in New York by attorneys Peter Neufeld and Barry Scheck to exonerate wrongly convicted people through the use of DNA testing. The Hawaii Innocence Project, or HIP, was started at the UH Law School in 2005 by attorneys Brooke Hart, Susan Arnett, William Harrison, and Professor Virginia Hench, the program director.
We exist to investigate claims of wrongful conviction where the person claims to be actually innocent. And we will look into the claims, investigate, and if there is some substance and if we can find some evidence to support the claim, then we will represent the person in court.
What we need in the prosecutor's office are people who have that degree of fairness, who understand that justice is what matters, and the ultimate result of whether a person is convicted or not convicted is not as important as whether the process works and the system stands for fairness.
The Hawaii Innocence Project is funded by donations and grants. It is staffed by lawyers donating their time and students electing to take the class and volunteering much of their time as well.
I thought our justice system was pretty good, and I think one of our former clients said it best, it shouldn't just be just a system, it should be a justice system, and that's what I've learned through this class, and people do get wrongfully convicted, and they count on us. They wake up every day hoping that we're going to do something, so it's been life-changing.
I think the number one thing that I took away from this is just, if I need to be the one that's going to speak up, I should be the one that speaks up. And I don't think that, people deserve to be put in prison wrongfully just because of a prosecution record.
I think what this class does is it forces you to understand the perspectives of people that don't get a fair shake in the system, and that there are mistakes that are made, and that there are profound mistakes that are made.
This course takes a lot of effort. Above and beyond what they do in the classroom setting, they have to do on their own. In this room here, they have to go through reams of files, transcripts, they have to talk to witnesses, a lot of work that they undertake to be in this program, so they're very dedicated.
What was it about the case that drew your interest?
Well, there were several things, but one was that it was based on a cross-racial eyewitness identification, which is a common factor in very, very many exoneration cases. And there was DNA testing potentially available because there were many, many items that were listed that had been collected at the time that should have had DNA, but testing was in its infancy at the time of the case 20 years ago. So they weren't able to get any usable results at trial. Also, there were 11 witnesses who saw him at a different location, and I thought that had the ring of a case, that might have some substance, and we thought, well, we'll test the DNA and we'll see.
Craig Jerome is a deputy public defender today, but when the Jardine case came to the Hawaii Innocence Project, he was a second-year law student.
The Innocence Project was just starting. We had very little money. We were having a really difficult time getting the money to get transcripts of the trials. We were still trying to figure out whether or not these items of physical evidence that had been talked about and introduced at the trial had been preserved by the prosecutor's office. Once I really looked at the case, and I actually traveled to Maui and talked to some people that were friends of the family and people that had lived in the neighborhood, at that point I started to have really significant doubts about whether or not Alvin did this.
As the months and years passed, Jardine was moved from Hawaii to different prisons across the mainland. His surroundings may have changed, but his determination to prove his innocence did not.
I used to write these briefs, and the thing used to be so huge. And I'd make copies, and I used to make what, $20, $30 a month commissary, either working the laundry or sweeping floors, whatever. And I would use all that money for buy stamps, for buy typing ribbon and paper and pens and whatever I needed.
Jardine began to see a glimmer of hope when he learned about the National Innocence Project.
A couple weeks later, Virginia Hanks was in Mississippi saying, I'm Alvin's attorney, I need to speak to him, and they let her right inside. And I sat down in the visiting room for an hour and a half. I told her my story, and she believed me, man.
My grandfather started working for Metagold back in 1923. My dad retired from Metagold after 30 years of service. I remember Dad telling me and my brother Matt about the importance of integrity and dedication, especially when it came to work. He believed that's what makes a person stronger. I guess you could say that had a big influence on me. I'm Frank Gaspar Jr., and this is Metagold and me. 3 generations and counting.
Just 10 minutes from Kapolei, just past the Ko'olina Golf Resort and a short walk from the beach, is the new home community of Sea Country. An 11-acre park, a featured daycare and retail center, and a community pool, all within walking distance from your new home. So what else does the lowest priced brand new single-family style homes on Oahu have to offer? Special financing to give you a better monthly payment. It's all here at Sea Country.
A healthcare reform download from HMSA.
With all the changes in the new healthcare reform law, you might be wondering where you can purchase your health plan.
Starting October 1st, you can buy it directly from us at HMSA or at a new website being developed for the state of Hawaii.
For more information, go to hmsa.com/reform.
HMSA. We've got you covered.
For more than 15 years, penitentiaries across the country were home to Alvin Jardine, before it appeared there might be any hope of proving his innocence. As the Hawaii Innocence Project got deeper into his case, the more inconsistencies seemed to present themselves.
It appeared to me that for whatever reason, the police officer set out to build a case against Alvin and didn't really look at the discrepancy.
It had already been a turbulent month for Detective Funes when he was assigned to the Haiku rape case. Just 11 days earlier, a confession obtained by Funes in a high-profile Maui strangulation murder was thrown out by a judge who strongly criticized the policeman for his handling of that case. The judge said Funes had denied the suspect his right to an attorney.
And the victim testified several times, because there were 3 trials. She testified several times that the composite didn't look like the man who attacked her. Yet, because the composite allegedly looked like Alvin, that was why they focused on him. And she described the attacker as appearing to her to be Filipino. Alvin does not appear to be Filipino.
She had overheard neighbors indicating that the picture, quote unquote, looked like Alvin. So she already had in her mind that the assailant may be this individual named Alvin. When the detectives approached her with the yearbook that had his photograph in it, they asked her to look through the yearbook and to see if anyone in the yearbook looked like the assailant. And so she did. She went through the yearbook page by page, and when she picked out Alvin, well, Alvin's picture had his name on it.
The attacker was described as having no cuts or marks on his chest. Alvin had a big cut from a construction job he'd been doing where he had dropped a board, and the board, he wasn't wearing a shirt at the time, and the board had cut him on the chest.
The prosecution's case was built in large part on the victim's eyewitness account of the assault. But Jardine's lawyers say eyewitness testimony is often unreliable. The lighting in the room was bad, and victims typically focus on the weapon and not the assailant. The strongest possible forensic evidence? DNA testing.
In this particular case, we had requested to test, I think it was about 25 items. But as it happened, the prosecutor's office had requested an order from one of the judges over there to destroy all evidence. And as it happened, they overlooked one item, which is the one item that we were able to test. It was stored separately from the other items.
The tablecloth.
Correct.
And the tablecloth was checked. There was none of his material on the tablecloth. And that was really the linchpin of our motion when we filed the motion.
Even with his renewed hope, because of the Hawaii Innocence Project's work, Jardine still spent month after month in a prison cell, thousands of miles from home, and longing for the day he could get to know his daughter, born just after he was incarcerated.
I cried, just thinking about the obstacles, the challenges that my girl is gonna have to go through, and that I cannot be there to protect her from it, or to defend her, or just be around her, to teach her.
They took away my dad. That's what makes me the most upset. They took away my father. They took away our bond that we will never have. They took away so much from me. They took a piece of my heart.
What moves you? Something hot or as cool as a cucumber? A little razzle-dazzle? Let's not sugarcoat it. Variety is the spice of life. Start living off the fat of the land with farm-fresh foods picked by hand. This is not just food for thought. It's back to basics like Tutu taught. Healthy picks move me. What moves you? What is your story?
Imagine collaborating with a diverse group of people from different backgrounds who all share common values. A place where giving back to the community is not only encouraged, but expected. Where your professor is not just a teacher, but a mentor. Imagine a place where individual leadership is prized. Imagine Chaminade University.
You may not know what we do or how we do it, but you're glad we do it. We're BEI Hawaii. We help you grow. We help you play. We even help keep pests away. From fertilizers to crop protection, specialty products, industrial chemicals, and pest control. BEI Hawaii plays a big part in keeping these islands green and growing, and so much more. BEI Hawaii, helping Hawaii be Hawaii.
The years of hard work by the Hawaii Innocence Project team were beginning to pay off. But despite the DNA evidence, Jardine would still sit through delay after delay before he could get another day in court. Finally, in 2011, he was brought back to Hawaii and into the Maui courthouse, unsure of exactly what might happen next.
Now, I'm walking into the courtroom, and I trying to see all these people. But I tell you what, I can see my girl, you know. I can see my grandma, I can see my dad, I can see my sisters, I just was like, wow, you know, it was just, and I haven't seen them for years, you know. And, you know, here I come walking into the courtroom, and I'm just stunned. My daughter's grown.
I think about that moment when they brought him into the courtroom. And his daughter was sitting right behind me, and I saw him come in. And of course, I had visited him in prison in Mississippi and Arizona and at Halava. But she hadn't seen him since her infancy. She was 20, and he had been in prison for 20 years. And she said, "Is that him?"
So then when he came into the room and I had seen him, and I just was like, wow, that's my dad.
I remember that.
Oh my gosh.
What words did the judge use to release you? What did the judge say?
He said, because the jurors in your third trial wasn't afforded this evidence, and because this evidence couldn't have been gotten at the time because DNA was in its infancy, therefore it is exculpatory. And the final question is, would this DNA evidence have made a difference? In my opinion, yes. Therefore, I'm overturning your conviction and giving you a fourth trial. And I was out of jail in a couple hours. I didn't even have clothes for it.
Maui prosecutors and the victim still maintained Alvin Jardine committed the rape, but the charges were dropped, prosecutors saying they did not want to put the victim through a fourth trial. Had there been another trial, Detective Funes would not have testified. While directing traffic in 2002, he was hit by a truck and killed. After the judge set aside the conviction, then the prosecutors decided not to go for another trial.
Mm-hmm.
Were you thinking, finally?
I wasn't really happy, actually. I felt like I got ripped off again.
Why?
Because I cannot go in front of 12 people and show them this DNA evidence and have them say I'm not guilty.
Matson Kelly is representing Jardine in a civil suit against the state, Maui County, and the Maui Police Department because Hawaii does not provide any compensation at all for those wrongly convicted. Here you don't even get a sorry.
Not a sorry. And the irony in that is that if, Alvin had been a criminal and paroled after, let's say, if he got convicted of murder, he would have resources and opportunities presented to him to help rehabilitate him. But the fact that the case simply was dismissed and essentially exonerated, there's been no support offered to him.
We have states that notoriously have a bad reputation for, these systemic failures, such as Texas, and they give people who have been wrongfully convicted and wrongfully incarcerated, I believe they give $83,000 a year for their wrongful incarceration, because even they believe that if someone is wrongfully jailed, that person, when they get out, should receive some recompense for that person's violations.
So Alvin Jardine got?
He gets nothing. He got nothing. He didn't even get an apology from the prosecutors or the victim in this case.
You get nothing. You get no sorry. You get no nothing.
I get $300 a month food stamps. That's what I get. I have no house, I have no car, I have no job. You see, I can get one job, but can I keep a job? Like I said, I'm still trying to find Alvin. I'm still trying to get him back. Sometimes I watch cars passing by and I just sort of think, these guys gotta go here, go there, go to the store, go to the bank, or, they gotta do something. These guys busy with life. And that's what I want to be doing, being busy with life. But I still got this past to deal with.
Maui prosecutors declined to be interviewed for this program because of the pending Jardine litigation. Thankfully, wrongful convictions are a small number of cases, but that is no consolation for the years lost to those doing time for crimes they did not commit. And again, unlike many other states, Hawaii's wrongfully convicted get nothing, not even an apology. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matt Levi. Good night.
Matt Levi Investigates, brought to you in part by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, empowering Hawaiians, strengthening Hawaii. Meadow Gold, the dairy that truly cares about Hawaii. D.R. Horton, America's builder. Chaminade University of Honolulu, a native Hawaiian serving institution. BEI Hawaii, Hawaii's largest distributor of industrial chemicals, fertilizers, and agricultural products. And HMSA, to keep our community informed and engaged, working together for positive change.